morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you're listening or watching. Episode 42, I think it is, we're on now, of TurfCast podcast with me, Joe Evan. Now, obviously, as you'll know if you listened last week, Simon wasn't available to do the podcast. He's still not available, unfortunately. I didn't go into too much detail last week because it's obviously not really my place to say, it's Simon's place. But thankfully, this week we do have a message from Simon and he can give you an update of why he's unable to be on TurfCast.
Hi everybody, hope you're all well. Just a quick message from myself, Simon Townley, your favourite host of TurfCast. Joe said he'll cut that bit out, so I've tried to make it difficult as possible too. Sorry I worked with you all last week. I was meant to be on Joe's show in an hour before that. I fell, and it's a week later now and I'm still in hospital, guys, so I'm just giving you a quick update. I've broken both my femurs, so it doesn't look like I'm going to be getting out anytime soon. But I'm gutted I'm missing the thing. I'm gutted I'm looking like I'm going to miss the first TurfCast watch along on Monday. But I'll be watching along with you, watching it along, which will be an experience in itself. So I can't wait to see that. But yeah, I've been in hospital a week now. Still not had any surgery, but I will be back as soon as possible, guys. You don't want to hear all that stuff. But how good is it? Football's back. Let's look at the positives. At least I've got an evening of football ahead of me while I'm stuck indoors. Can't wait to be back. And as soon as I can get back on the show, I'll be there. And thanks, Joe, for asking about me. And thanks, Joe, for sending this message out.
So there you have it. Big thanks to Simon for sending that over while he's bedbound, as he says, in Royal Blackburn Hospital after a double leg fracture. It's obviously not the nicest. Yeah, like I said, I didn't really want to go into too much detail last week, but big thanks to Simon for giving us an update on that, and I wish everyone who's listening or watching this now can just get in touch with him, give him an heads up, let him know you're thinking about him, give him your best wishes and all that sort of stuff, let him know that you wish him a speedy recovery and all that. And I do want to just say, obviously, it is the second podcast that Simon isn't on. You will be hearing from him later again in the podcast a little bit. He is going to come on again a little bit later in the podcast, but obviously at the minute it is just me mainly on the podcast. I know a lot of you tune into the podcast for that banter that me and Simon have, because let's be honest, you're not listening just for our footballing knowledge, are you? Because half the time I get most of the shit wrong. But I know a lot of you tune in for the banter that me and Simon have. And of course we have good banter and a good connection. We've known each other pretty much all our lives. I've known him since primary school, still best mates with him now. So yeah, obviously we're going to have good banter. I know that's why a lot of you tune in. So thank you just for sticking for us just for a few weeks while Simon's in hospital. Of course, it's not something that we ever intended to happen, just me being on the podcast on my own. It was always going to be me and Simon, and eventually get some more people involved as well. So if you are still listening, a big thanks to you, and hopefully Simon will be back sooner rather than later. But I do just want to quickly mention our sponsors, Pitch Sports. I have to do it every week. And obviously football's back now. And I know I always say, or I've been saying for the last few weeks, well 3 months it's been now, hasn't it, since there's no football, that that Pitch Sport are still managing to turn over some good content. They're still managing to do some good stuff. Obviously, all of that side of things has stopped now because football's back. And that's what the app's for. The app's for when football is back and football's on. So the app's back to its best now. You can do your team lineups. You can get in touch with fans of other teams and discuss things. You can get in touch with fans of your own teams and discuss things. Of course, I've been putting my fan town questions up there. We'll touch on a fan town question later in the podcast and get some of your responses. So all of that's back on the podcast now. So on the Pitch Sport app now. So it is the perfect time for you to download it if you haven't already. Please give it a download because, as I mentioned, football's back, and that brings me on nicely to some of tonight's action. Now, I've watched pretty much the entire sort of like football that was on tonight. I watched the first game, Villa Sheffield United, wasn't it? A bit of a boring game, let's be honest. But football's back. We don't really care. But to be fair to Sheffield United, they should have got the win because that ball was over the line. I don't care what anybody says. I know pretty much 99.9% of the people will agree with me, but I have seen a couple of people on Twitter saying it's not over the line and blah, blah, blah. It was. Even Hawkeye have come out now and said that the ball went over the line. So you've got to feel hard done to if you're Sheffield United. If that were Burnley, I'd be absolutely spewing. So I do feel for any Sheffield United fans out there. But the game itself, apart from that, there was no other talking points. That just goes to show how poor the game was. That the only talking point was the fact that some technology didn't work. But if that were Burnley, we'd be getting crucified, by the way. Fans all over the country would be saying, "Oh, typical Burnley, this is why everyone thinks they play boring football, because it's always 0-0. But the first game back being 0-0, that was a bit of a piss take, wasn't it? We waited 3 months to football, we didn't even get a goal. But of course, after that was Manchester City Arsenal. Now, it's on now as I'm reading this. As I'm talking to you now, the game is actually on. So I'll just quickly get the score up on my app. When I left the front room to come in here, that was when Garcia was down injured, wasn't it? He was injured on the floor after a nasty injury. After a clash with Edison, I believe. I missed the actual incident because I was doing something else in here that you'll hear later on in the show. He had a bit of a clash with Garcia, I believe. But when I left the front room, it was 3-0. It's still 3-0 now. And the main talking point, apart from the injury to Garcia, which I think will probably be the main talking point now, to be fair, because it did look pretty serious. Like I said, I did miss the actual incident, but I got back into the front room a couple of minutes after it had been, and it took about 6 or 7 minutes for him to even get him on the stretcher, and everyone looked really concerned. So I'm sure more of that will probably be out already while you're listening to this. I'm sure more about that will come out tonight / tomorrow, Thursday, the day that you're all listening to this. So I'm sure we'll find out what happened there, but it did look really serious. But the score is 3-0. But as I said, the other talking point is David Luiz. Now, I absolutely love it when he plays shit because of his criticism of Burnley in the past, and he was absolutely dog shit tonight. Let's not beat around the bush. He was absolutely dog shit, and I absolutely love it when he plays rubbish. The first goal, I think it was KDB, played a ball through to Raheem Sterling, or an attempted ball through to Raheem Sterling. It looked like it was going to fall short. It's bounced off the grass. It's hit Luiz's leg, bounced behind him because he's miscontrolled it, and then City have scored. That'd be good enough. David Luiz has made a mistake. I'll take that, and City have scored. So that'd have been good enough for me. But not only that, is he then gave a penalty later on in the game, which City scored from, and he got sent off. So that was absolutely fantastic. So football's back, and David Luiz being absolutely dogshit is back. So after his comments calling Burnley anti-football, like I just said, then it's I'll take that as a bit of karma. But the shit thing about football restarting again is that we've just had this two games. We've got back into football. 2 games have been on. We've all sat down and watched it with a beer or whatever, and enjoyed watching football. And I remember thinking or being told that football is on every single day. So I've sat down and I've thought to myself, well, not games on tomorrow. There is no games on tomorrow, which is Thursday, the 18th of June. There is no games on according to the fixture list I'm looking at now. The next game is Norwich Southampton, which is a big one for Norwich. They've for me, they're down. But you've got to be looking at that and picking up some points if they are going to get out of it, which some of them fans still think they do, so fair play to them. Then after that, we've got another decent one, which is Tottenham Man City on Friday. And then comes Saturday, so you've got Watford, Leicester, Brighton, Arsenal, West Ham, Wolves, AFC Bournemouth against Crystal Palace. And on Sunday, Newcastle, Sheffield United, they're back in action again after today's game. So are Aston Villa, they're taking on Chelsea at Villa Park. And then Everton, Liverpool. Now, I don't think Liverpool can win the league now in that game, can they? Because City have won tonight. I might be wrong. Apologies if I am. Just double check that. But my understanding is that City had to lose tonight or not win for Liverpool to win the game, to win the title in that game. But then after that is the Burnley game. Of course, we're the last team in action, which is absolutely bloody typical. But of course, it is the City game. And me and Simon, as I mentioned, Simon does make an appearance on the podcast again later in a few minutes. And that's what we talk about. Me and Simon discuss the game. So we'll touch on that later in the podcast. Right, so there's been a lot of doom and gloom. Well, not doom and gloom. There's been a lot of sort of like negativity, like talking about negative things on the podcast tonight. Mainly Simon's injury, of course. Well, that's the only negative things we're talking about. But that is quite a bit of a serious thing that we're talking about Simon's injury and how serious it is, and hoping that Simon gets better soon and sending him messages and things like that. So what I've done this week is I've tried to sort of like put something out on the socials that gives us a bit of a boost. It's something I can talk about on the podcast that's a little bit more upbeat and get people smiling and things like that, and hopefully give you a bit of a laugh. Now, I saw a tweet this week that said the Premier League are set to play a walk-on music for subs. That must have obviously been bullshit, so I've seen the game tonight and I didn't see any of this. But it says Premier League are set to play walk-on music for subs coming onto the pitch. Clubs are allowed to play music at key moments, including goals, and for subs, which players are allowed to choose individual music as part of goal celebration. Now, like I said, that's obviously bullshit, but that wasn't really relevant. Like I said, I just wanted to sort of like get something out there and something we can do on the podcast that makes people laugh. So I put that on social media, and I said, what music should each Burnley player choose for their goal celebration music? Now, quite a lot of you got in touch. I'll start off with Alistair Carey. Apologies if I've got that wrong. Well, I've got it wrong. It can't be both, can it? I've got it wrong in some way. But he says James Maddison needs On the Floor. Now, I agree with that because he spends half the time on his floor, doesn't he? Shout out to David Ashley as well. He's been in touch. He said Ashley Barnes, if he scores a goal or comes on as a sub, needs Brick Shithouse by Placebo. Yep, definitely. I'll take that one. Johan Berg Gudmundsson needs Ice Ice Baby. Yep, again, that one, or something to do with being injured all the time, one of them two. Dash's post-match interview entrance should be Glass Shatters, the Stone Cold Steve Austin music. That'd be class, that, if Sean Dash came on camera and you could have steered the Stone Cold Steve Austin music start. Ben Me, another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd. He's giving us loads here, as David Ashley, shout out to him. McNeil whips one in the top corner after leaving 4 plays for dead. Then we should play Dancing With Myself by Billy Idol. And then every time Ballsy does a tackle, Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. I like that one, especially, David. Karen's been in touch. This could apply to a few, but mostly Barnes or Barnsley, solid as a rock. Yeah, I think you can have a lot of Burnley players with that music. Tarky probably being another one that comes up to mind. Danny Nutter's been in touch. He says a rocky theme tune for Barnes. A lot of people going for Barnes, and I understand. Sean Barnes has got in touch about Ashley Barnes or Phil Bardsley and says Saturday Night's all right for fighting. Yeah, them two are ultimate shithouses. Here we go. Karen's got the perfect one for Johan Berg Gudmundsson. This is my favourite for Gudmundsson. I'm Still Standing. Yeah, I'd agree with that one. But he's not, because he's not playing, is he? He's not playing. Final countdown for late subs, says Ad Crook. Leo Eckinson says Jump used to get me excited. Do you remember that one? That Jump, boom. No, it weren't that one. What the music that we used to play? I can't remember it. It was an 80s thing, weren't it? So it's probably a bit before my time. But I remember that one. I do remember the actual song. Well, I can't sing it. I've just tried to sing it and I couldn't remember it. But I do remember that being one of my favourites. But a few people have shouted out and said that, the Bacchus track, the track that we play at the start of this podcast, by the way, is a sample from a track called Ashley Barnes by a local grime artist called Bacchus, and a lot of people have been in touch and said that one, but I'd agree with that one, of course. I like the shithouse versions and the fighting versions for Ashley, because obviously that's what he's known for amongst us clarets, but that one is the actual Ashley Barnes song. And if you do like the track that we play at the start of the podcast and at the end of the podcast, check it out. Just go onto your Spotify. I think it's on Apple Music as well. I'm not sure. It'll probably be on SoundCloud. So it's definitely on Spotify, because I've listened to it myself on Spotify. Just type in Bacchus, and there's a song by the local grime artist, as I said, called Bacchus. It's called Ashley Barnes. It's an absolute track. He brought it out at the start of the season. If you haven't heard it already, and hopefully you can listen to that and you'll enjoy it, because we do play it at the start of the podcast. I know Simon Maru, shout out to Simon if you're listening. Every time I do the quiz at the weekends, he absolutely loves it. He always comments on the quiz saying Ashley Barnes do, because that's what the track says, and obviously he likes it, and hopefully a lot of you'll like it as well. Right, now I want to move on to the Pitch Sport fan time question that I put on the Pitch Sport app this week. As I mentioned, please download the Pitch Sport app if you haven't already. And then by doing that, you can get in touch with me when I ask these questions every single week, and you can put your response out there, and we will read out the best every single week on the podcast. But last week's question, I asked if it's time to cut our losses with Johan Berg Gudmundsson. Obviously, I've made a couple of comments already. I find it very, very frustrating how much he is out injured. I think he gets away with it as well, to be honest. I think the amount of stick that Stephen Defoe got when he was here and always injured, I think Johan Berg Gudmundsson gets away with it, to be honest. I found it disappointing that Stephen Defoe got all his sticks. I know I'm being a little bit hypocritical saying that Johan's getting away with it. Obviously, I don't want him to get stick, but I just found it weird that a lot of fans were so quick to jump on Defoe's back when he was constantly being injured, but the same fans are just holding off a little bit with Johan. I asked if it's time that we cut our losses, like I said, and just got rid of him because he's injured too much. I personally think it is. I love him, don't get me wrong. I think he is one of the better players in the team in terms of technical ability when he's fit. But let's be honest, he's just never fit anymore, is he? He's just always injured. It's always the same sort of injury as well. It's never an impact injury. And if it were impact injuries, I could deal with it because, it's not really his fault and it doesn't really show that his body's slowing down if he's getting injured, if he's being cropped by players or he's getting a dead leg and things like that. It's always muscle pulls. It's always like slight tears. It's always things like that. He's obviously got something wrong with his muscles. He's obviously been overworked. Maybe played too much football because he did play a lot in the season that we finished 7th in that season. Afterwards, he played in the World Cup, and then obviously the season after that, the summer afterwards he played in the World Cup, then the season after that, of course, he started European football with us in late July, didn't he? Obviously he played a lot of football in a short period of time, so maybe he just needs a rest, and I understand if fans think that. I think he's probably had long enough now. I mean, like I said, I do love him. He is one of my favourite players when fit. Just like I know I always use this as an example, we just have to look at the goal that he scored against Southampton on the opening day of the season where he cut inside and bent it into the far corner. Absolutely brilliant finish. He's a brilliant player, and he doesn't just have a finish as well. He has a brilliant cross on him, and he has a brilliant pass on him as well. He is one of the better players, as I've said, but he's just injured far too much for me. So that's the question I asked this week on the Fan Time. On the Pitch Sport app, on the Fan Time on the Pitch Sport app. And we had a couple of sponsors. Neil Layfield's been in touch, big friend of the podcast. Is Neil. Shout out Neil, listens every week. He says he agrees it's time to cut losses, I think. He says taking a gamble with Brady being fit, and if both are constantly injured, that's wages we could be paying someone less prone to play. Totally agree with that. I think both of them are on quite a decent whack. I think a lot of the players are on quite a decent whack now. Gone are the days of us only paying 20k or more, or whatever it were the first time in the Premier League. Nobody went over that, did they? We had like a weird sort of like wage structure where nobody went over 20k. But I agree with that. That money's not. I know everyone always goes on about how well Burnley run, and they are. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're not well run, but obviously we don't have the ability to pay some of the wages that pretty much every other Premier League club does, apart from Norwich, really. I know Villa have a few players on 100k a week, so the Bournemouth. So it's only really us that don't really pay, and Norwich, that don't really pay them astronomical figures. So I think for me, I'd agree with that. There's two players there that are on quite a decent whack, and I'm not looking at the stats in front of me. I could have got them up before the podcast, but I haven't. But I'm sure combined they'd probably be on 60. That's again, it's not just one player. Apologies there, I just hit the microphone, but that's just not just one player. We can have two decent players for that money, and we do have two decent players there in terms of technical ability. That's why they're on the money, because they're both very decent. But now they've both spent the last 2 seasons just injured all the time. With Brady, it's a little bit different. He had that horrific knee injury, but some people are saying like, he's not going to come back from that the same, and I agree with that. We've had that discussion before. We won't go into Brady too much, but there's two players there that are constantly injured, and I think for me it's probably time that we started looking at getting rid of. But I know Brady, we're not going to do that because obviously he's just been offered the contract, as Neil says, but I think it's a bit of a weird one to have two players on there that are constantly injured, but that's just me. Anthony Edwards as well has also been in touch. Shout out Anthony, thanks for getting in touch. He says, yes, I agree, he's a fantastic player when fit, but not available anywhere near as much as he should be. Keep Hendrick and buy someone to replace JBG. So that's the responses for this week's Fan Time question. Like I said, if you want to get in touch and you want to have your response read out on the podcast, then please go to your app store. It's available on the Google Play Store as well. Just type in Pitch Sport and it will come up, and it is there for you to download. And of course, you can do video responses as well and audio responses as well. You don't just need to type it in. Neil, Anthony, if you want to do it next time, just send us a video of you answering the question via the Pitch Sport app. The guys at Pitch Football will then send me the audio clip or the video clip, and now that we have the VODCAST, I can stick you in the VODCAST as well. And just speaking of that, I know we had a message off Quilter DeBarra. Apologies, mate, if I've got that wrong again. I tend to get his name wrong every single time. He asked if we are going to be doing the watch-alongs. Now, maybe he's not been listening to the podcast, because I have said every week that we are going to be doing the watch-alongs, and we are. I'm not here to trim you up, Quit. I'm not here to say, why have you not been listening? I'm here to sort of like say, like, if you want to be on the watch-along, or you want to be involved in the watch-along in some way, we do have some plans of getting the fans involved. So the people that listen every week, your Simon, Marouche, your Neil, your Robbie, your Jared, your Steph, your Anthony, your Wolfie, people like that. We've obviously got the lads over in America as well, and some lads out in New Zealand that will listen every week, especially you boys. If you're so far away, it'd be absolutely fantastic to get you involved. All you need is a Skype connection, a webcam, a Skype username, a webcam, and an internet connection. That's all I want. I want people to be involved in this watch along that we're going to be doing. I'm going to put it on the socials this weekend. So if no one gets in touch on the podcast to say that they want to be involved, then I'll just put it out to the people on social media to see if anyone wants to be involved as well. I'm going to put it out there to my podcast listeners first, and VODCAST, of course, VODCAST viewers. I'm going to put it out there to you guys first. If you want to be on the watch along with me, because it is just going to be me now, because Simon's unavailable still, he's not going to be available for the watch along. He can't really do it in the hospital bed, can he? He's going to have nurses coming up offering him morphine every 10 minutes and brews and stuff like that. And he might even be called away to have his leg stretched. I won't go into too much details, but because of the fracture, he's having to have his legs stretched. It sounds horrible. It really does sound horrible. Please send messages of goodwill to him, because it really does sound horrific. But yeah, I'm going to put it out there to you guys at first. I want to get everyone involved in some way. You won't be on it for the full 90 minutes. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm thinking of going round to fans and sort of like having a fan on for 5 minutes, and then me chatting for 5 minutes, having another fan on for 5 minutes, and then stuff like that, and just going around the fans, and then maybe even going back to you if we only get a few people and doing it that way. Like I said, all you need is a Skype username, a webcam so I can see you, and a microphone so I can hear you as well. Actually, I do need to hear you, and an internet connection, of course, because without the internet, Skype wouldn't work, would it? And none of this internet stuff would work because that's what it is. But yeah, if you're interested, please get in touch. I'd like to get the usual podcast listeners on, the guys that have been here from the start, all the usual names that I've mentioned. Apologies if I didn't mention your name, because there is quite a few, and sometimes, of course, if you don't get in touch, I'm not aware, obviously, if you listen, but if you want to be on the watch along, it's going to be broadcast live on YouTube and on Facebook. So you'll get your face out there. You can come on the Turfcast, the podcast as well, because I will release it as a podcast as well, sort of like a listen back to the watch along sort of thing every single week, and you will be broadcast live on our YouTube and our Facebook as well. Let's talk about The Athletic, which is a must for all football fans and has loads of brilliant Burnley content. The Athletic brings you the best coverage of football, combat sports, NFL, NBA and loads more. A world-class team of football writers, including Andy Jones, who covers the Clarets, and it's completely ad-free with no ads and no annoying pop-ups. If you're not signed up to The Athletic yet, fans of Turfcast can now get 50% off the annual subscription price and a 7-day free trial. To get the deal, head to theathletic.co.uk/Turfcast. Right, so we heard from him earlier in the podcast, a little bit of an update from Salmon, and I did say we'd hear from him later in the podcast as well, and I am pleased to say that he joins us on the phone now live from Royal Blackburn Infirmary. Is it called? Royal Blackburn Hospital anyway. How are you doing, buddy?
Well, I'm right. How are you?
Right in the circumstances, I presume?
I'm alive.
Yeah,
Still going.
True. But how have you been anyway then? How have you been spending your time over in hospital?
Well, it's been quite difficult, mate. I mean, I presume some of your listeners might relate to this with family members, but you're not allowed any visitors. Being quite a VIP experienced, whatever you want to call it, hospital visitor, I made sure that when I got in the ambulance, and I'll tell you now, mate, we'll go into this in a minute, but when I was in that ambulance, you wouldn't think I'd have the brains to say, don't forget my charger, please, babe. So I managed to get everything I needed to sort of entertain myself, but yeah, it's been hard, but football's back. Watched the first 2 games today, being Wednesday.
Yeah. Obviously, time of recording is Wednesday, as it always is. Nothing's changed on that regard. But yeah, we'll get into the football a little bit then, because it'll be good to chat to you about the football. It'll be good to have a back and forth with somebody else other than just me sat in the kitchen, as the podcast is now, with the football. But let's just touch on the first game first. I mean, it was pretty dull, weren't it? But it's over the line, isn't it? There's an incident where Sheffield United score, and it's just not given. And then Hawkeye and the Premier League and Sky have come out and said it wasn't working. The technology. I wonder what's gone on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very strange, isn't it? Because if Hawkeye's not working, then where's VAR? Is that not working? Yeah,
well, I was watching Sky, I should say. They did say that VAR is allowed to overrule the goal decision system. However, I just speaking a guess here and just an educated guess and trying to piece it all together. I reckon what's happened is, obviously, Hawkeye and the goal line system has been correct every single time, hasn't it? They haven't had an issue with that. So I reckon what's happened is they've seen that it hasn't crossed the line in their eyes, in Hawkeye's eyes, and they've just relied on it. They haven't thought of anything. They haven't thought, well, yeah, we won't check VAR because it's always been right. There's no need to. But obviously, if they'd have just checked it, if they'd have just gone, we'll check it anyway, just in case, they'd have noticed that it were over the line. That's just my guess anyway.
I reckon Heaton's walked past before the match and just flicked it off. Goal line
probably.
Probably sat in front of a Hawkeye up in stand.
Yeah, you have to give him a text and say, I know you did that, mate. I saw you do that.
Yeah. Apologies, everybody, by the way, if you can hear background noise. I am on a bay, as they call them now. I don't know what they used to be, but a bay, so there is people coming around offering teas and coffee, so apologies if you can hear that.
Yeah, that's fine. You can also hear a brilliant little TV in the background as well. I think one of your friends has got one on TV. Some beautiful music coming out of that TV a second ago. Then
we've got. I've met some new friends on this ward. You know, I mean, we're all going to say none of us have got family members to come and visit us, but interestingly, in Blackburn, naturally, you know, they're all men in this ward. And then they all start talking about football, and majority wins as Burnley fans, which is amazing.
Happy days, yeah, that is good. It is good to see that. I mean, we are the biggest club in Lancashire now, definitely the best. Some people might argue about the biggest. No one on this podcast will, obviously. But definitely the best club in Lancashire right now, so I think that's probably got half to do with it. I think any Blackburn fans might be a little bit quiet, you know. I won't tell him I support Blackburn, I'll say I'm not into football. I think that's what I'd do if I were a Rovers fan these days.
I've had more people saying that they're not into football than telling me what team they are into.
There you go, they're all Rovers fans, mate. Telling you right now, they're all Rovers fans.
Yeah, I used to watch it, but not so much these days. It's too
I watched it in 1994, 95 by any chance, did you?
Yeah. Funnily stopped watching it after that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, I met a couple of ones. I'll give a quick shout out to Rob Benson, who went home yesterday, bless him. He had his ankle surgery. He'd heard a Turfcast, followed it on it, but never listened to the podcast. So I thought, we need to change this.
I noticed that because you told me about him and you said this is his Twitter, and I went on it and he already followed me, and Turfcast already followed him and he already followed Turfcast, and I remember you saying he's not listened, he's going to listen. I remember nearly saying like, come on Rob, why have you not listened? What's all that about?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you could see the sort of like peer pressure of this younger man talking to a man I'm going to hazard a guess at 50s, and I'm saying to him, like, go on, have a listen to it. And he's probably thinking, I don't want to listen to two young lads talking Burnley, they don't bloody know. And then, anyway, I've been nodding off because I'm on some serious painkillers. And every now and again, I just nod off, look up. And Rob's little chuckling away to himself. And I'm like, oh, you're all right, pal, what are you listening to? He's like, oh, just listening to the David Jones interview.
There you go, you see. See, people just need a bit of a nudge, don't they? People just need a bit of a nudge. And then once you listen to me and Simon, or the David Jones interview, or the Matthew Loughton interview, or the Bertie Beatreaker interview as well, that were a good one. People always tend to like it. So, if you haven't already, I'll just call on my listeners to do so. Just tell a friend. Just tell a friend about Turfcast, especially now football's coming back as well. Hopefully we can get more listeners coming up, especially going into the season returning and into next season as well, because football's back, and it's going to be back next season as well.
That's a special shout out just for Rob, but out of 7 beds, 4 of us played the quiz on Sunday.
Oh yeah, well I were going to say Rob did play the quiz, didn't he?
Yeah, he played it under his own, which fair play.
I saw his name pop up a few times in the comments.
Yeah, so he went and played it on his own. We're on opposite beds and I'm bedbound. I'm strapped at bed with my legs in air, and 3 of us are bedbound and he's not, so he just made his own little thing.
Fair enough. Shout out to Rob if you're listening. I know I'll give him a shout out on the quiz as well. And shout out to everyone on Ward C9, is it, at Royal Blackburn Hospital?
It is C9. I've met some great guys, Rob being one of them. So yeah, it's positives to come out of negatives. But
100%.
It's been hard.
Hope they all continue to listen though. Big shout out to them boys. I just want to quickly touch on the game that's on now as we speak. Of course, it's Manchester City Arsenal. When I left the front room to do this interview, it was 2-0 to City after David Luiz had cocked up for the first goal and then cocked up for the second goal as well. And I found that beautiful, beautiful moment of karma when I just went back at his interview where he's slagging Burnley off saying that's anti-football, they don't play in the right way, anti-football, and then he can't even defend.
Yeah, well, as you're speaking, it's basically the same as you probably left it. It's 2-0. That Luiz is obviously still sent off.
Yeah, but, he's not going to come back, is he?
Sterling's doing a lot of air shots today.
Yeah, I saw one at first half. I mean, he's played well, I think. He scored the goal. Well. But, I saw one in the first half where he got put through and he went to cross the ball in and just totally missed it, man. It were hilarious. It's just not like him.
Well, he's just done 2 more while you've been speaking about this match.
Insane. But it looks like City are going to go and get the win. So obviously they're our next opponent. So that brings us nicely, because we've been doing a bit of a scouting mission. Well, you've been doing a bit of a scouting mission. I mean, I've been watching it as well, but I didn't tell you I was going to do this. But I'll put pressure on you now. You've been watching City tonight. How do you think they're going to play? Are they just going to play in the same sort of way as we'd expect, or are they expecting anything different for the game on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it was a little bit different this time. They've come out and they've not pressed. I don't know if you noticed yourself, but Arsenal versus City, you thought high intensity. Neither team press. I think that's a fitness issue. We've seen one go off injured already. We've seen one go off injured on the other game early on.
Yeah, well, two went off injured for Arsenal in the first 20 minutes, didn't they?
Yeah. So I think it might not be as high intensity, which it works in our favour, because obviously we're good at defending in numbers. Yeah. But I think we struggle to get out when the press is on us. So if they can give us a chance and let us out of the half, then why not? If it were at Turf Moor, it'd be different. But there, in front of the 16 fans on a big screen, it's going to be hard, mate.
Them 16 fans are going to put the pressure on. They'll make all the noise. But I heard an interesting fact. Someone will surely get in touch and tell me I'm wrong, because I didn't write it down, and it was just something I heard on the TV earlier whilst watching this game, funnily enough. But there's been 51 games in the Bundesliga, I think it is, so far since the restart, and there's only been like 20 home wins. Or is it like 11? No, I think there's been 11 home wins and 21 away wins in that. So there's been more away wins in the Bundesliga than there is home wins. Obviously, the fans being behind the players, which I don't really think is an issue at the Etihad, because I don't really think it's not to go to the not to go down the usual route of banter, but it's they're not a passionate crowd, are they? They're a quiet crowd, so it's not really the crowd that rolls them on to victory at the Etihad. I just think it's the big pitch and the fact that City are just more comfortable with that pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we can't grow that grass an extra centimetre, we're fucked, aren't we?
Well, that's it, though. But I have heard them speaking, the commentators again earlier, is they were saying that there's not as much moisture in the pitch, or there won't be as much moisture in the pitch in certain games. Obviously, the City-Arsenal game now absolutely pissed it down before the game, didn't it? So that one will be absolutely dripping. But there's going to be games at Turf Moor where it has been dry for a few days, and as Arteta said earlier in the season, we don't water the grass as much for some fans. For some teams, so we might have a bit of an advantage ourselves at Turf Moor with that.
Yeah, listen, going towards this particular game, I think it's going to be so difficult, and I reiterate what I said in an earlier podcast, that I'm not comfortable with City having a game head start in sort of the lockdown return.
Yeah.
Because it was so static before that first goal went in. No one were really getting in behind. The Villa-Sheffield United game were a better example of that. It was poor football, and no one really knew how to embrace the atmosphere or lack of it in this case. And I think I would have been more comfortable if we were both going in at first games, but because we're not, I'm a bit worried.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they're more likely to hit the ground running. They're going to come off the back of a decent result, albeit against an Arsenal side that's been quite poor tonight, mainly thanks to David Luiz. But they're going to come off it in a positive mood, from a positive result, with like a game under their belt. And some people might look at that and say, well, they might be knackered from only playing a few days early. But I see it as, like you say, a positive for them, because you do see teams play in the week on Wednesday and on Sunday. So now they're playing on Wednesday, then on Monday. They're going to be used to that as it is anyway. So it's not like they're playing like Wednesday, first game back, and then Friday or Saturday. They've got a decent enough gap there, and they're just going to have minutes in their legs, which will help them, and I think they'll be able to hit the ground running. It's going to be difficult anyway, but I think because of that, it's going to be even more difficult.
Absolutely, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And then after all that worry, you've then got the fact that it's 11 City players against Burnley. Do you know what I mean? We haven't even discussed the fact that they've got your David Luiz and 5 substitutes available now.
Yeah. I've spoken about it earlier in the podcast.
David Silva. It was just
I spoke about it earlier in the podcast, but Burnley, of course, do have a couple of injuries. It's looking like it probably will be Vidra and Jay up front, with Barnes is still out with a hernia. Chris Wood's got an ankle issue. I thought Chris Wood isn't definitely out yet last time I heard. Like, he might be. He probably will be out, but he wasn't definitely out. But Barnes he is. So it looks like it could be Vidra and Jay. Now, I don't think that one's been tried too much, has it, Vidra and Jay?
No, but I've got a bit of inside information for you. A bit of a scoop.
Go on.
I definitely won't be fit for this weekend's game.
That's shit. I expected something good then. You got me well excited. I know you're not fit. You've never been fit for a game, mate.
I am proper fucked. My legs are facing it wrong way, let's put it that way.
Well, I've seen that before.
No, but going back to the J Vidra thing, sorry. Painkillers are kicking in, feeling confident. J-Rod.
I can tell.
Weren't J-Rod and Vidra the ones that played that through ball to each other in the... and then Goodmanson, I think, played that game as well. And
he's got a tight calf, as usual.
I can't remember who we were against, sorry, but they were really exciting, sort of fast football. It was one of the first games that sort of like Vidra come off the bench.
Weren't the Southampton victory in down at Southampton, were it?
I'm not sure, but there was some really good... Yeah, it might have been, because J-Rod played in that one, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they both started. I can't remember if they were both on at the time. Obviously, memory's not the greatest, never has been. But it's one of them. Like
the ball down. They both had to get it with feet.
Exactly. Like I know a lot of people. I say a lot of people, not the majority, but quite a few listeners have got in touch and said they would like to see Jay and Vids up top anyway. And you might as well do it now. There's nothing to play for. We're safe. I know I say this every week. Some people get in touch and say we've still got Europe to play for, but we're probably not going to get Europe. Let's be fair, boys. I think we've got too many tough games. City away, Liverpool away, and things like that. But yeah, why? There's no better time to start them two strikers than now, and we have to do it anyway. So we're going to do it.
Yeah, well, yeah. City's one of them games where some managers play the reserves, so why not play two of your best players that don't get a run together?
Fair enough. We haven't been able to do this for quite a long time. 3 months? I've not asked you this question for about 3 months, but I'm going to ask it you now.
Oh.
What's your prediction?
I think we'll get beat.
Oh.
Unfortunately. I'm being really nice and thinking 2-1, but...
You know what?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I was thinking 2-0. I think we'll start slowly because it's the first game back. Yeah, I think we'll start slowly because it's the first game back. Plus, like you said earlier, we're playing Man City. So it's one of those scenarios. What we do?
Yeah, that Black Lives Matter.
Oh yeah, he's a good player. I've seen him. He's played in 2 games tonight. He's been everywhere. He's been all over the pitch, mate.
Oh, mate, honest to God, he's unbelievable at defending, striking, good player.
Tell you what, mate, get a tenner on Black Lives Matter to get the first goal.
Mate, and we just signed a player.
No, we signed a goalkeeping coach. Have we just signed a player? I'm going to say. We signed a goalkeeping coach, mate. You must have been knocked out by them painkillers. Yeah, you must have been knocked out by them painkillers. Well, that's it pretty much then from me. You must see what? Sorry, go on. I'll let you. No, it's all right. Go on.
The text I'm sending people, it's just like, yeah, mate, no problem. X, Y, Z, 5, 4, 3, 2, and I've just basically been like nodding off, typing on digits.
I've had a couple, to be fair. Not that bad. I've had a couple where you've clearly just forgotten a word, or you've said something wrong, and I've just gone, he's been knocked out.
The ones that you see, mate, are the ones that I've thought, yeah, that's right, that one. That can go.
Yeah.
They're the ones that I've thought, yeah, they're all right to go. Let them go.
Well, happy days. Well, that's it from me. So we've both got a defeat, though, for the Clarets this weekend. We will be doing a watch-along, though, probably without Simon. Keep your eyes peeled for more information, because I still need to work out what to do in the absence of Simon. But Simon, thanks for joining us on Turfcast from your bed in Blackburn Royal Hospital. And as you've said earlier, you won't be out for next week, but I'm sure we can do the same for next week and get you on a phone call.
Yeah, mate, if it's good for you and it's good for listeners, I love doing it. It's given me so much to focus on today, so thanks a lot for having me.
Right, so that's it for this week's podcast. Thank you very much for downloading and listening. If you haven't already, please do subscribe on your podcast app, because that by that way it just goes straight into your phone every single week. You don't need to do anything. You just go into your podcast app and it's there waiting for you. All you have to do is click listen, and then listen to your heart's content. If you haven't already, please do subscribe on YouTube. We have 80 subscribers now. Now I'm going to do like a bit of a celebration when we get to 100. Nothing major, obviously, like. I'm not going to go out on piss because I can't. I'm not just going to get smashed because I have 100 subscribers, because 100 subscribers isn't really that big in the grand scheme of things. But for sort of like a small channel like us, it will be massively appreciated if we can just get... I know there's a few hundred of you listen to this podcast every single week, so if I just get 20 more of you to listen, I am going to do like a celebratory stream where I just do like sort of like a live Q&A stream. Again, get some of you guys involved. You can ask some questions. I know we've done some watch-alongs in the past where Reese and Ben have both been like constantly asking me and Simon questions about things happening at Burnley Football Club. And we just want to do something like that again, just sort of like chat to you guys and get to know you all more. And we'll do something like that when we get to 100 subscribers. But hopefully we can do it this week, and we can do the live Q&A maybe in between the City game and Watford. I think it is next after that, isn't it? Apologies, I haven't constantly revised the fixture list over the break, but I'm pretty certain it's Watford, isn't it? So please subscribe if you haven't already. Please like the page on Facebook as well if you haven't already. We've got over 4,000 likes. I think about 4,500 now on likes on Facebook. So if you haven't already, please go and like us on there. Please follow us on Twitter and on Instagram as well. We're on all the social media. So thank you for listening this week. And again, apologies Simon isn't back. He won't be back next week either. And again, thank you for sticking forward as well. It is just me, but I'm going to try and get Simon on a bit more and introduce him more into the podcast. Now he's settled a bit in hospital and he isn't in as much pain as he was last week, because he couldn't come on it last week. He did it on Wednesday evening, as he said on his either in the interview I've just done or on his voice clip, I can't remember. He did it on Wednesday, so obviously he couldn't come on it last week. He was still in too much pain, but he will be back soon. He won't be back next week. He will be back soon, but he will be on it again next week. But we'll find out more next week, won't we? So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.